I'm sitting here and kind of speechless with what I've just experienced with Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 Episode 5. It just released. I watched it. Phenomenal. Spectacular. These first 5 episodes have been nothing but exceptional. From the ground up, fighting, storytelling, music, animation, color palette, everything to describe this show has been top of the line perfection. If you're a Kaisen fan from the manga side, from the first season, or just in general, you and I are currently feasting. It's sad to see it all come to an end. The flashback, the history between Gojo and Geto, the introduction of Toji, everything was handled with such finesse, such care, such passion. We're now moving on into the very early stages of Shibuya. I'm very happy that I waited for this episode because the way they handled Geto and this newfound appreciation that you'll have for his character and their approach to showing it, this spiral into his mind and what he wants to do with the sorcery world and how it's kind of tearing him away from Gojo as a person, is handled so brilliantly. The 4 episodes prior slowly build up that distinction between Geto and Gojo as characters, and they do this in a lot of different ways, but personally what I enjoy the most is the color palette. The dynamic that it builds on between them is visually very pleasant, and you can see it start to change and morph with each event, and it's a reflection of basically their mental states. These are young sorcerers approaching this world and learning about themselves and learning about the harsh reality of it while being relied upon to do some very massive things. It's not easy. It's not simple. It's not just go here, destroy some curses, come back. There's a lot of moral ambiguity, a lot of ethical problems within the sorcery world, and that gets questioned quite a lot. If you didn't really have a good understanding of the sorcery world and how corrupt it truly is, I think these first 5 episodes do a great job in showing that. Leave a like or subscribe, bro. I really loved how they shifted their focus, however, like a pendulum. First, they started with Gojo, showing his rise into power, his awakening, the fight between him and Toji, basically from his perspective. The colors reflected beautifully, but that pendulum starts to shift, and you start to see more of Geto in the final episodes, and his viewpoint on the world starting to become a lot more obscure. It's starting to spiral and become corrupt, and he truly hates what is happening. This is the episode where it all snaps, where it breaks and fragments, and he truly disconnects himself from Gojo and the sorcery world in general and takes his own path. Mind you, he thinks he is right. He is correct, that he's doing the hardest choice that no one wants to make. It's explicitly stated to you that he's also very much jealous, that he doesn't have the power within himself to pursue this goal and make it easier. He frames this within a conversation with Gojo. It's eye-opening. Mind you, he's already been sentenced to death, so their encounter is very turbulent. You're learning a lot of information and you're understanding Geto's perspective, and that appreciation grows so beautifully. You can tell that he's tired and that he's becoming angrier, and he's just done with this world, with this mindset that he had. So it's sad when that switch flips. It's like his eyes have been opened for the first time. He's cheerful, he's happy, he's moving towards a goal, and any sort of kindness or personality or semblance of his previous self has been thrown away. It's the hardest thing that Gojo has to accept within this conversation, because if Geto had Gojo's abilities, his goal would be easier, and that hurts because he's not technically wrong. Gojo is the strongest, and this is the early stage of the pillar that Gojo would become, the person holding this world together. If Gojo disappears after becoming that pillar, the whole world shatters. It gets thrown into turmoil, and Geto knows this. I love the restraint that you can see within Gojo when he meets Geto. Because they're in public, which is very purposefully chosen by the way, Geto assumes that Gojo won't make that choice to kill him with all of these people. He wouldn't make it easy, but he knows he wouldn't do it. And Gojo gets very close to doing it. You can see his hand signs, he's angry, he's upset, he's so confused about this whole situation. It's a curveball to him. It's devastating to witness all of this, but so beautifully handled. That spiral, that showcase of Geto just losing himself into these thoughts, into this action and outcome that he wants to go for, reaches that point of no return. This village gets completely destroyed, and you can just see everything disappear of his previous self. He's gone, he's lost, and realistically there's no way to bring him back. You probably have a bunch of questions, and you'll get more answers for it eventually. Now, while this completely covers episode 5, and before I go on to talk about Gojo versus Toji, I kind of want to mention their sound design. I loved how they reflected the sound design, I guess is the best way to put it, with Geto's decision making. There was moments within there where you just see how tired he's becoming, and his thoughts are very corrosive, but the sound design is very purposeful. They use rain a lot to really make this sense of suffocation in my mind. It's very crowded, it's very overblown, and this is when Geto is talking, and for me it symbolizes him just so confused and caught up within all of these ideas within his head. It progressively gets worse and worse. They do it a couple of different times. I love this approach. Now obviously I can't talk about these first 5 episodes without mentioning the masterclass of just entertainment that is Gojo versus Toji. There's no real way that you can explain it that does it justice. This is something that you have to experience. Just watch it and just see who this person is. Narratively, it works really well because Toji is kind of a catalyst to everything. Symbolically, what he is, what he represents, how he acts within this world, and kind of the impossible nature of who he is really gets fleshed out a couple episodes later. Not him as a character, but the idea of who he is. What type of bodily structure makes him a possibility. Mind you, this is very valuable, very, very important, so try to remember it as much as you can going into Shibuya, and if you jump over towards the manga. I didn't know what to expect going into Gojo versus Toji. Obviously, it's one of the most anticipated fights within the story. It's one of the most entertaining. It's brutal and visceral. It's this Gojo awakening for the first time and seeing him very much unhinged, just high within this moment. How they approached it music-wise is what really surprised me, and the visuals that accompany it in the sense of color palette, because they really drove it home that this moment with Gojo awakening was angelic. It was heavenly. This is a time that the Honored One would shine, and they wanted to make that very, very clear. To put simply, they did not hold back. The piano choice for music, I think is perfect. It emphasizes further how angelic and otherworldly this moment is. You don't get this stuff often. This isn't something every character goes through. This is the strongest individual within this era, with one of the strongest powers within the story. In saying that, I absolutely adore their approach with Toji. He's not just this crazy, psychotic killer going around obliterating everyone. Even though that's how he's penned at the beginning, that's how you view him, he changes. He evolves a little bit throughout the fight. The more you learn about him, the more you find out he's not just this one-dimensional being. He's not all just about the action. There's a bit of intent behind it, a bit of character. Remember this stuff, because you will get a lot more of it later on, explored from a perspective that I think is very valuable for readers, watchers, etc. If you like his character, what he represents, what he means for the sorcery world as a person with a heavily restriction, hang on to that idea. Some moments that really stood out to me within this fight, obviously animation wise, superb, beautiful, from the first encounter to the second encounter to Geto versus Toji, everything is just flawless. It makes that man seem like a monster, and he is at the end of the day. But I really love the sensitive, self-reflective approach in his final moments. Going into it, I was very curious how they would approach his death. It's a gruesome one. It's a big moment for Gojo, a combination of abilities for the first time. No one's seen that before. It's unpredictable. The pixel-perfect precision, but also destruction of that ability shocks Toji to his core, rocks him quite literally, and just takes the biggest chunk out of his body. This is someone that was speed blitzing, moving so fast, so intelligently, so much was going on within his head, yet within this moment he knew something was wrong. That self-awareness, for me, so powerful. And it's something that you don't get at the beginning because he's portrayed as this feral monster, but over time it starts to leak into his personality, why he's so intelligent, why he moves so differently. And it actually goes back towards his son, a little bit of his family, his history, and you learn more about him within this moment than the entirety of the season provided. This is great, by the way. And there's a bit of an afterthought that comes with it in regards to Megami. How that was handled in episode 5, I thought was lovely. Seeing a young Megami, seeing him not care about his father, seeing Gojo's reaction to it. Funny. Very well done. But you know what really stuck within my head? And I feel like they emphasized this on purpose because they lingered on the moment. Toji did not back down. He died standing up. And that's because what he was fighting for was very much different to what is actually shown. Like, sure, there's money involved. Sure, he seems like a horrible horrible, disgusting individual, but when you see those brief snippets of his personality, brief snippets of his wife, of his son, the reason why he despises the Zenin family and why he took Fushiguro as a name, you start to see a much bigger picture. When you compare that with what this whole season has provided so far, how they treat people, individuals that are different, that are extremely powerful, that don't follow the normal ways, that don't follow the sorcery ways, that don't follow the political family ways, they get outcasted. They get treated horribly. You're seeing the worst side of not only sorceries, but the families within it. This is a political powerhouse. These families don't just raise powerful beings, they control them, they weaponize them, they use them as power, leverage, and political gain. Unfortunately for Toji, he was one of those beings, and he did not want to be. And just to really wrap it all together nicely, to send off a different note for his character, he wants to make sure that his family, his son, mind you, that you were led to believe that he did not care about, that he left, abandoned, whatever, would be okay. That he hoped and wished would not go to that Zenin family. And Gojo lives up to that result. He takes Megumi and his sister away from that family. So he's not sold off, so he's not turned into some monster, so he doesn't have to pay the consequences that his father built. In the end, that is the last thing his character offers, and I think it does wonders to change your perception of him. And I think it's just one of many characters that follows that route of a newfound appreciation. At the beginning, you might feel a little bit indifferent, but over time, they start to bloom and flourish, and only within 5 episodes that this flashback has taken place, they have thrived. I am scared for Shibuya, how much it's going to offer, and ultimately where it ends. There is so many twists and turns and great things that it has to offer, and we are all in for a treat. If Shibuya is anything like these first 5 episodes, it's going to be a great ride. Prepare yourself, hang on tight, you're gonna need it.